Arindam sir, have you joined?
No, I'm here.
Oh, okay. No, sir, I was talking about our guest.
Yes, yes, they will join within a minute.
Oh, okay, sir.
Okay. Moon ma'am, have you joined? Hello, Moon ma'am. Am I audible?
I joined, sir. I joined. My audio is little bit disturbing.
No
I
issue.
joined. Yeah.
I'll request you. You please join to our admin
Okay.
group.
Through
Okay.
admin group. Okay.
Yeah, through our info group.
Okay.
So
Okay. No issue. Yeah.
as that you can also add people, admit people. Okay, because I have to leave for a meet.
Okay. No problem. I'm joining from there.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Arindam sir.
Good afternoon.
We'll start in a bit, sir.
Okay.
Very good afternoon to the distinguished guests, delegates, speakers, and the participants. I am Antara Kundu, Project Executive of South Asian Institute for Advanced Research and Development. On behalf of SAIARD, my heartfelt gratitude to all the esteemed delegates for accepting the invitation and presiding over the second day of this 2 days national level webinar on inclusive urbanism and green technology. This event has been organized by Center for Urban and Built Environment of South Asian Institute for Advanced Research and Development in association with Smart Cities Mission, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, Government of India. Well, further making any delay, may I now invite Mr. Arindam Ray, Director Academic Affairs of SIRE, to say a few words. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Antara. First of all, I want to welcome to all the distinguished guests over here. Yesterday, also Hitesh sir from NIUA joined with us, and he also spoke about the various activity like green technology and sustainable urbanism. And we are all looking forward for the second day. And there are distinguished guests who will join with us today. So I will request all of you to enjoy this session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Uh, Now it's time. We invite Dr. A. Bishwash. Dr. Arindam Bishwas is an associate professor at the Department of Architecture and Planning, Indian Institute of Technology, Roorkee, India. He has doctorate in urban planning from the University of Tokyo. He is recipient of the Institute Research Fellowship for Outstanding Young Faculty, ASEM, Duo India Fellowship, DAAD Fellowship, Germany, and MEX Scholarship, Japan. He has also undertaken a certificate program on international environmental leadership from the University of Tokyo. He is presently pursuing researches sponsored by different research foundations of Government of India like Department of Science and Technology, Ministry of Education, Indian Council of Social Science Research, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change and National Building Construction Company. He is also working on researches sponsored by the Royal Academy of Engineering and GCRF UKRI United Kingdom. He has published two editorial books and contributed in four book chapters. He is presently working on three books to be published next year. He has also extensively published articles in peer journals on urban infrastructure, inclusive growth, resilience, housing and informality, innovation and regional development. I cordially invite you to share your opinions and views with us, sir. Over to you, Dr. A. Bishwas.
Thank you for the generous introduction, and thank you, Dr. Rajoli, for your invitation. Uh, uh, can you see my screen?
Not yet, sir.
Now?
No, sir, it's stuck actually. I don't know, but it maybe it's my internet connection, or I don't. I want to ask the participants if it's okay with you, everybody, because I have a little bit of network connection problem today. Can you see it?
No, Mr. Biswas, we can't see your screen.
Okay. Can you see now?
I mean, we can see your screen, but not your presentation. So we can see the windows that are open, but not your presentation.
Okay. Please allow me to reconnect. I'm just
Okay, I think sir will join again. Let's wait for some time.
Antara, is there any problem? Hello, am I audible? You are mute.
Yeah, sorry, sir. Yes, sir, I can hear you. Actually, your voice are breaking, sir.
I'm thinking, is there any problem?
So, actually, Arindam sir was unable to share the screen. That's why he left and joined again. I think then he has left the meeting again. I think there's some
Okay, okay.
technical glitches from his side.
Let him talk. That first share his screen. Sorry, share open the screen. Yes, now it's perfect. Right. Sir, your screen is visible now.
Arindam sir, I think you need to unmute yourself. So kindly unmute yourself.
Yeah, I'm the problem I'm having is that when I am joining as a guest, I cannot share my PowerPoint. I don't know. I only can share the websites.
So you yeah, yes, Vishwajit sir, you were saying
You
something.
do, sir, one thing. You just first open the PPT on your desktop,
Okay.
and after that, you go to the present screen. Come to the Google Meet and share the present screen option.
Yeah. And I think there are sometimes this problem occurs in Mac, and I am doing that, but I'm not being able to uh, share my screen. That's the problem.
You do one thing. One time you
Okay,
just
okay.
click.
Now I
Right?
can do. I can do. Yeah, yeah. Now I
Yeah,
can do. Yeah, yeah. Sorry for the delay.
yeah, yeah. You through window, present screen, then window, then you may find your presentation there.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yes. Now it's audible. Now it's visible. Thank you.
I'm very sorry for
No
this
issue. It's
delay.
okay. Completely okay. No issue.
Yeah.
Please. Thank you.
Okay. So thank you, Dr. Vishwajit, for your kind invitation and a very pertinent topic to discuss. Today, I will share my research on measuring inclusiveness of growth, a capability approach based methodology. Uh, I will discuss more or less these are the contents. India's growth story, first of all, then the growth and development pattern in India, then why India chose inclusive growth, the significance of this research, why we feel that this is a very important aspect, particularly when we are discussing about measurement, uh, dimensions of inclusive growth, the policy analysis that we did for this research, the significance of capability approach analogy, and kinds of an this is a kind of a push from us to consider this as a measurement framework rather than the utility based approach mostly being followed in many of the government's analysis or many of the existing researchers analysis and then conclusive arguments. The contents has been taken mostly from these four papers. So if you follow these papers, you will also get to know about the researches that has been done and uh, the backdrop, including the data and the analysis in detail from these four papers. The last one is yet to be published, so will going to be published probably by the end of this year or early next year. But most of the content of this presentation is being taken from these 4 publications. So to start with, this is more or less our growth trajectory post-independence. And after independence, we followed kind of a socialist political and economic principles. And our major approach was pro-poor growth or extremely pro-poor growth, where the poverty elimination or poverty alleviation was the major criteria. And the first sense of reform, which started with India's computer policies and other industrial policies in the 80s, which kind of culminated into 1991 economic liberalization, which still the focus was mostly on pro-poor growth or extremely pro-poor growth. And gradually our mindset to change from pro-poor growth towards more neoliberal approach of policy making. And in 2007, first this term inclusive growth that was introduced in 11th five-year plan. And the major difference that we find from the earlier growth approach was the creation of opportunity. That was more important, which was probably lacking when we were having our growth towards the more pro-poor growth rather than inclusive growth. There has to be certain kinds of difference, that why we have suddenly or shifted our approach from pro to inclusion. And the backdrop which was given in the 11th five-year plan was that we had a population of 32.7% below the international poverty line of 1.25 USD, and almost 70% below USD $2. So that was a significant number of population to be attributed with direct benefit from the government policies or programs to be eliminated as or to be taken into above poverty line, so that it needs a kind of a shift in terms of policy. So that's probably the reason why we changed to inclusive growth. And this was the in terms of the values or the numbers. This was also within the government that why are a very strong argument to change its shift. It is being updated with the recent data. So almost 65% of our GDP comes from urban area, but yet we have a very high percentage of both in terms of poverty and slum. And in 2011 census, almost 66 million people are living in slums. And since our research is mostly focusing on urban policies and urban development, so we will be focusing more on urban development issues and urban growth issues. So almost 2,600 cities across 31 states and union territories, they have reported existence of slum in 2011 census. And more than 35.2% of urban population is slum dwellers. It's a huge percentage of urban poverty and homeless people that exist in our cities. It's not only about the absolute poverty. In terms of relative poverty also, we lag significantly. So inequality in terms of the Gini coefficient, and we can see the 34.4 or 0.344 is a significant number in terms of inequality ratio from in our urban areas. So this was a backdrop of the urban growth that we or the growth in whole that we achieved so far after the economic liberalization. We have achieved a lot, but in terms of the inequality that we were discussing, and which is being evident from the Gini index, is significant. And we can see now it is almost like hovering around 50%, which is significantly higher than we had in 2000 or 2004. And when we translate all these into understanding, that we see that almost like uh, top 20% or top 10% of our population who earn the top 10%, they have been able to multiply their earning almost like threefold than compared to the bottom 10%. So that is very significant in terms of developing a country or a society which is much more inclusive in nature. Even in terms of income share in percentage, the highest 10% of our society, they earn more than 50% of the total income, and the lowest 10% is very insignificant percentage of the total income of the cumulative income that they earn. So it's a very skewed status of our overall growth and development, which is very far when we are discussing about either pro-poor or broad-based growth or inclusive growth in that sense. In terms of the sectorial distribution, we see there is a drastic change uh, when we compare between the agriculture industry and service sector. We everybody knows that we are more a service oriented economy, very different than what China or Indonesia or Thailand, many of the other developing countries could achieve. So here you can see that this is the GDP in service sector, which has grown tremendously. So the people who are employed in service sector, they are beneficiary of a large chunk of this gross domestic product. In terms of industry, it has steadily increasing, and in terms of agriculture, it's very insignificant. But when we compare with in terms of the number of population who are engaged in the different sector, we see it's almost like a reverse, where agriculture sector they involve maximum number of population. So it almost like translate into their income as well, right? So that is a major concern in our overall economic structure of the country, and also in terms of urban and rural India. When we discuss specifically for urban India, we see these kinds of disturbing figure in terms of unemployment ratio, which is very high. It is in addition to the underemployment. Underemployment is very difficult to kind of a measure, but at least in terms of unemployment, we generally have not been able to do a significant justice in terms of creating job for larger section of the society. So these are kind of a backdrop why we need a shift in terms of our policy outlook, and a backdrop why inclusive growth or inclusion has become a kind of a buzzword, not only for economic or social sector, but also in urban development, infrastructure development, everything. So in terms of global economic journey, we see these three major verticals. Uh, i- One is market-led growth, one is pro-poor growth or broad-based growth. In DFID in UK, they used to uh, term this as broad-based growth. And last one, what we discussed today is about the inclusion or the inclusive growth. And the major difference between the earlier growth trajectory or the earlier growth policies is this aspect of income and non-income well-being. So this is one of the major thing where it changed from the earlier growth trajectory to include it in multi-department or multi-sector analysis and understanding. So by inclusion, we are not only talking about the economic inclusion or the social inclusion, we are talking about other aspects of inclusion. This non-income well-being allow us to consider it even in our urban planning policies, and allow us to measure and compare between different cities or different urban local bodies based on evaluative criteria. Another thing which is different is about its equality of opportunity. So here it is not only talking about direct intervention, it is only talking also talks about creating opportunities for people and participation. So these are the hallmark of our urban policies and urban planning, creating opportunities, if not opportunities, at least participatory mechanism of urban development is very crucial when we discuss about community engagement in city making process. When we consider this different growth trajectory with the larger discussion of equality and justice, then we can broadly differentiate between whether market-led growth, whether it is equal or it aims to be equity-based society. We may not think no. And when we say equity, we are considering equity based on the term of justice. And here, when we consider justice, we refer to John Rawls' A Theory of Justice, 1971, and also Amartya Sen's The Idea of Justice in 2009, which considered the preferential actions to individuals with different abilities. So whether market-led growth allow the preferential actions to individuals or a community or collective individuals through additional efforts or preferential action, and the answer is no. The pro-poor growth, whether it is being justified or whether it is following the principle of justice of preferential action, the answer is yes. But in terms of equality, it may be no, because it is preferring few sections of the society. But when we consider inclusive growth, it focuses more both on equality and justice, because here we are focusing on a society based on equality of participation and creating opportunities for all, and also allowing additional benefits to the people who are lagging behind. So it kinds of an approach which is more holistic in nature. So here, first time we distinguish between creating of opportunity and creating of welfare. So further going into the detail of this analogy, we understand that there is a difference between creating of opportunity for all and then welfare and social security. So these are different aspects, but neither market-led growth or neoliberal growth or pro-poor growth actually can combine this together, or could combine this together and work for the society as a whole. So that's the hallmark of inclusive growth trajectory. So why we feel that our research on analyzing inclusive growth is following this capability approach analysis methods is more important, not the traditional utility-based method, because of these two fundamental problems that we have with the existing utility-based analysis. So when we discuss about opportunity or growth, opportunity means opportunity that comes as a consequence of any policies, be it housing, be it a new road for me to access a new city, or be it access to clean water. Everything is an outcome of some policies or some investment. So when we say opportunity, so these are the opportunities that a policy create, an urban policy or any kinds of policy create for that particular sector. So if in y-axis we have the eternal inequality between the people, and in the x-axis we have the cumulative share of population that is being distributed from 0 to 1, And there are somewhere it has a mean opportunity which is distributed among all the people in a country, which can be measured. But generally what happens is that access to opportunity is higher for people who have more economic mean or their ability, and it is being lower for the people who have either less exposure, who has less exposure or less knowledge or less capacity. So when we give more opportunity to those people who have less, then gradually they become much more able and much more capable to access to opportunity to or to become or to improve their quality of life. But the problem is that we don't know at what point they become much more able to access to different kinds of utilities and services. So that is a major problem that we find when the traditional or the utility based approaches are employed in measuring inclusiveness. So these are the two major aspect of or two major limitation. One is that we do not quantify, or we cannot quantify the precise magnitude or change of opportunities that occur over time. It might be to an individual or it might be to group of people. Now it is our analysis, or it is our objective of our analysis, that how do we determine the group of people. In our research, we determine the group of people based on their income. So we have determined, let's say, people who are belong to slum population, people who are belong to urban poor, or people who are beyond, who are above the poverty line. And the second problem, or the second limitation that the existing utility-based methods have is that they consider only opportunity, but not all dimensions of inclusive growth. So they do not consider welfare difference than opportunity, or they do not consider participation, for example, as a mean of, or as a measurement indicator to measure inclusiveness. There are huge research articles and books and papers that are available on inclusive growth. And ADB or OECD or United Nations, many of these international organizations also publish a lot of literature. And you can see even Ali and Son, those are the economists in ADB. Even their social opportunity function, one of the what we find that a very important function to measure inclusiveness, even that is utility based approach, which does not really respond to these two criticism that we have identified. When we looked at the different variables, or to identify different variables, we compared the existing international organizations and what they are expressing as a medium or as a dimensions of inclusion. So we looked at United Nations, we looked at World Bank, IMF, OECD. We combined them together because mostly these are financial financial organization which looked after economy and finance part. And ADB, why we have distinguished ADB, because it's a relatively Asian organization, and also they work much more than the international organizations. So what we find common is that the pattern, which everybody talks about, the pattern, not only the pace of the growth, the equality of opportunity, participation, welfare, and social safety. So, and the last two is the benefit sharing and economic well-being. So these are the 6 attributes or 6 dimensions that we could identify among these literatures that are published by these international organizations. And for our analysis of urban policies, we identified equality of opportunity, participation, welfare, and social safety and benefit sharing. We did not consider economic well-being and pattern for our analysis. So when we created this analysis methodology, as I was mentioning, we have this is based on Amartya Sen's capability approach. And we also refer to Elinor Ostrom's analysis of summary variable and situational variable, how those policy summaries and the situational difficulties create a policy to be planned and then be implemented. So when we consider our institutional mechanism, the framework. So our urban policy is mostly being formulated by the national government or the union government. So what we consider union government as a formulator, and then the policy or the power, and in addition to policy, the delegated power comes to the state government, which is mostly the adapter, and then the local government, which is mostly the operator. So what we did in terms of the policy analysis, which is a consequential analysis based on the policy summary variables. So those are measured at the national government level because they are mostly the policy creator. And each of the policies we have distributed in terms of strategy, the policy papers, their objectives, and the constraints. And with this, we have identified through the method of consequential analogy the well-being that each policies could make to each of the policy sectors and subsectors. To have these policy sectors and subsectors, we have referred to UN Habitat's policy sectors and subsectors, which they introduced long back, distributing different categories of urban development strategy, be it housing, transportation, urban energy, resilience, poverty alleviation, etc. And at the ground level, what we could understand that these constraints, which are mostly the situational variable, which Elinor Ostrom's also discussed about. So situational constraints that create it difficult for a policy to be implemented, and the objectives of the government policies are the achievement of the functioning state, which is a whole target of any government, which Sen refers as functioning state, and the policies and the strategies which actually are the means to achieve those resources. So these are the means to achieve those resources, which Sen in his literature defined as resource and for developments. So this goes through the complexity of the situational variable, and then people can achieve the capability set to each of those functioning set, which was determined by the objective of the government. So that's how we theoretically created a framework in terms of to analyze the policy inclusiveness. In order to do the empirical analysis, we took the data from policy documents, be it JNURM or Smart City or Amrut of the Union government. And then we summarize each of those policies in terms of policy document with outcome, policy strategy, and objective, as I mentioned in the earlier slide. And then we refer those policies classification into the intended well-being of people that was mentioned in UN Habitat policy sectors and subsectors. Then all those policy well-being, as I mentioned, that we created three group of people: slum, poor, non-poor. This is based on the data availability. The more segregation you make, the more better results that you can achieve. So we considered socioeconomic background as a three kind of a group of people. It can be done individually as well. And then we created the matrix for the policy well-being with respect to the inclusive growth dimension and policy sectors and subsectors. And finally, we have identified the value, and then through the process of summation and standardization, we could understand, or we could at least identify the cities of less inclusion to more inclusion. We cannot say that this is a perfect one, but at least we can compare between cases. So this is one of the findings for the JNURM Urban Renewal Program in terms of the policy analysis between these different sectors of welfare, participation, opportunity, and benefit share. And we find for different categories of people, the level of inclusion is different. So we find that the non-poor participate more in governance rather than the poor people. Varying degree of benefit share for slum poor and non-poor people, where non-poor share more benefits than the poor. Uh, Opportunity is more for slum and poor than the non-poor. Welfare and social safety is more for slum, followed by poor and non-poor. Rightly so. So that's the kind of findings that we have uh, got to know from these kinds of analysis. And when we analyze 4 cities, here we city mean like 4 different municipal corporations, 2 from the southern state, 2 from West Bengal, 2 from Tamil Nadu. And this is the kind of findings that we have in terms of different capability for different variables. So participation in governance, physical planning, opportunity to obtain land, opportunity to obtain shelter, benefits of improved community infrastructure, benefit of improved personal infrastructure, benefit of financial market, and productive employment. All these were considered as the attributes to analyze capability of slum and poor people. And we identify almost like there is a significant lack in terms when we consider that whether the people became capable to obtain all these benefits or opportunities or even participate in different kinds of urban policies. This is mostly analyzed the JNURM. The same thing we'll be doing for Amrut and Smart City as well. And this is for urban poor category. And we find that in the 4 cities, 3 out of 8 functioning is not actually achieving any kinds of significant benefits. But in terms, as I said, we cannot say the best, we cannot say one city achieved everything, but at least we can compare and we can rank. So in terms of ranking for urban poor, we find Chandannagar and Srirampur doing better than Tambaram and Pallavapuram. But for slum population, Chandannagar is again doing better than Tambaram, Pallavapuram, and Srirampur is the last. So 2 different kinds of findings for 2 different categories of people. So when we say why capability approach needs to be or maybe a better approach to analyze or visualize inclusion, is because it is a very simple graphical understanding that this is a housing finance policy which is being extended by the government, and this is being made for people, including everyone of the society. But what we call is that people who have no capability to achieve these policies because of certain restrictions. So unless and until we remove that restriction, there is no way we can have a significant benefit with inclusive growth policy. So this we call the virtual line of incapability. So we cannot directly attribute to each and every sectors, each and every people who are living beyond this virtual line of incapability, and create a mechanism where everybody being helped directly by the government, rather than we create their own way to obtain different strategies or to create become capable to access the government's program must be a better way to resolve the urban problems that we have. So when we in terms of conclusive argument, we can say that there is a critical variation in terms of urban renewal and housing and livelihood program. Non-poor people get more benefit and participate more than slum and poor. For the urban renewal, housing and livelihood aim to extend benefit and create opportunity to poor and slum. The welfare is lopsided for housing, facilitating poor more than the slum. In terms of ethical argument, also we find there are a little bit of problematic in terms of accessing or giving less amount of concentration to non-poors. Policy push for participation is falling short. Like, people do not participate or hardly participate in any kinds of urban program, and the mechanism of participation is also very disturbing, where participation has become almost like a tokenism when we consider the way the participation happens. And welfare and social safety misses the target population. So that is also a major problem. That welfare and social safety probably the urban poor get more towards welfare programs rather than the slum population. So that's all very briefly. I hope, I'm sorry I have taken a little bit more time than initially. So that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. If any of the participants have any query or question, you can ask, or you can even write in the chat box also. Anybody? Okay, so I think there's no question raised. Thank you so much, sir, for accepting our invitation and sharing your thoughts, though such instructive presentation in such short span of time. Thank you so much. Now, I'd like to invite Ms. Sarika Chakravarti. She has nearly 2 decades of cross-sectoral experience in urban infrastructure and transportation planning works. Currently, she is working as a sector coordinator for the Master Plan for Delhi 2041 project at the National Institute of Urban Affairs, which is widely regarded as the think tank for the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, Government of India. Previously, she has been part of organizations like UNICEF and NCRPB and has worked on various projects funded by multilateral agencies like the World Bank and JICA, etc. Her transportation planning experience includes metro station design, demand generation studies, transit-oriented development plans, mobility plans, and corridor improvement plans. Some of her noteworthy project experiences are planning and design of Kolkata East-West Metro Corridor, comprehensive mobility plans for Kolkata Metropolitan Development Area and Shiliguri-Jalpaiguri Development Area, etc. To her credit are also the preparation of the master plan for Jamshedpur Urban Agglomeration and conducting feasibility studies for establishing waste management systems for the government of Kenya. She has know-how of international best practices and has been part of knowledge exchange visits to London, Singapore, and USA. I cordially invite you to share your thoughts with us, ma'am. Over to you, Sarika, ma'am. Sarika, ma'am.
Hello. Hello. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am. You're audible now.
Okay. Yeah, I often start speaking without unmuting myself, so please excuse me for that. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for inviting me for this workshop. Thank you to all officials of SAIARD, Dr. Roy and others. This topic that you've selected, inclusive urbanism and green development, it really got me thinking, because I was just thinking about how is it that I can connect the two. And inclusivity we had this entire presentation by Dr. Biswas on how inclusivity can be defined. So myself being an urban planner, I'll be speaking from the planning perspective. So from the planning perspective, how we define inclusive cities is the cities which provide opportunity for all. So irrespective of your age, your gender, your disability, or your income class. So when we talk about income class, the word that comes to my mind is affordability. So if any city which is able to offer affordable options, not only just for the urban poor, but also the middle class and the higher income people, that is what I would call in a real sense an inclusive city. Also an inclusive city which gives opportunity to its citizens to basically elevate themselves, to educate themselves, to live healthier lifestyles, because it has open spaces, access to health and educational amenities, things like that. Green development, of course, spatially you can talk about it, that there has to be open this thing, but uh, green development and green technology, that can also be interpreted um, as a tool. I wouldn't say we are all presently getting blindsided by technology about, that if we procure a certain system or a certain technology, that is the solution that will help the problem that we are trying to address. That is not how it should be perceived. Technology should just be used as should just be perceived as a tool. And when we buy a tool in a house, say in a household, then if there are multiplicity of users associated with that technology that you've procured, only then I would call it a value for money. Okay, now going back to the global agenda and the urbanization connect, we all know that India is committed to achieving the UN sustainability goals, and recently also the COP21. So how is it that we plan to do that? And when we talk about sustainability, why is it that we always end up talking about cities? We talk about cities because 78% of the world's energy is consumed by cities, and cities also produce 60% of the greenhouse emissions. So therefore, the environmental costs associated with urbanized areas is very high. Unfortunately, we are not dealing with urbanization as we should, in a sustainable manner. As urbanization is basically, all our cities are mostly going horizontal because we have land. So we are just spreading. And that is not how it should be. We should actually have more compact cities. So that will result in reduction of, the trip distances. Our reliance on automobiles will go down, result in congestion, air pollution, all these things which impact the environment would be mitigated very well. We are also using our resources very inefficiently and injudiciously. So that is something that we have to take care of. We have to focus on preserving our natural assets like lakes, rivers, and urban forests. And we also have to value our resources like water and energy. And waste should also be considered as some kind of a wealth which can be reused, and the overall waste output which goes to the landfills or say to the rivers eventually, that can be reduced to quite an extent. Urbanization and technology, these two things are very well connected. Technology can bring some order into the urbanization which is taking place. So cities right now are under immense pressure. The growth rate of immigration is going up with each passing year, and it is expected that presently almost half of world's population is living in cities, and by 2050, which is a UN estimate, it is estimated that the number would jump to 68%. So imagine 68 people out of every 100 per people living in cities. So the pressure on the urban centers is going to be immense. Along with growing population, there are new challenges which would emerge because the demand for infrastructure connectivity would really increase. And technology it is envisaged that technology would play a very pivotal role in managing the energy, providing transportation, access to resources and jobs. So that is why presently the focus is on enabling cities to undergo digital transformation, a word which we are very often using, which is the smart city. Government of India also has the smart city mission. My take during this presentation will be slightly different. That I understand that cities can become smart by use of technology, but that's not just the only way to go about it. Even without technology, there are certain things that we can do with our cities, which can make them smart. So, and with added support from technology, they can become super smart. So presently the technologies that we are using are more to do with the information and communications technology, which is more a data based technology where you generate data and you use it. Then there is Internet of Things, which talks about more connectivity. And then spatially, we have the geographic information systems. This is also supported by artificial intelligence and blockchain technology. So each one of these, they work together, collect and contextualize massive amount of data. And that can be used to improve the components and systems running within the city. Here I would like to make a point that data is the backbone of all our planning decisions, because our planning decisions have to be well informed, and that if we have data, that is the only way we'll be assured, not 100%, but to a great extent, that the decisions that we are taking will fructify as we are envisaging them to. Peter Drucker, who's a management theorist, had said that what gets measured gets done. That is why data also again becomes very important. In case you have data, you can set a baseline and then you can set your targets and you can very well monitor and evaluate it. In that sense, you will be able to actually understand whether all the development patterns that you had envisaged, whether you are achieving them or not. So technology is basically used for 4 sectors. One of them is public health. The present ongoing pandemic in this technology has been used to a great extent. Korea and Singapore, they had assembled public maps of confirmed COVID-19 cases. This basically allowed the citizens to see the locations of the patients and their histories, travel histories. And, this kind of gave them a warning to stay out of certain outbreak zones. Taiwan also did something very similar, in which they sent real-time alerts to doctors about the patient's travel histories. So the doctors were able to assess which patient, based on their travel history, had a higher risk of contracting COVID-19. In India, of course, we know about the Arogya Setu and COVID apps. So those have been extensively used in the vaccination programs, as well as for information dissemination regarding the spread of the virus. Technology is also used in transportation. We are using it for traffic management. Smart technology, we know we all have GPSs, so we are able to connect to vehicles, infrastructure, public transport, and this helps people in improving mobility and also assures their safety. In transport planning, there is this word that we call as multimodal integration, or also our objective in transport planning is to ensure seamless transfer of commuters. In both these cases, technology plays a big role. Two names that I've mentioned here is Amsterdam and Barcelona. Here they use technology for developing a smart traffic management system where traffic is monitored real time. This is also happening in India in some cities, some smart cities, where we have established these integrated command and control centers in the smart cities. So they are also doing the same thing. For parking also, technology can be used. It addresses the issue of aimlessly driving to find a parking spot, whereby we waste energy and increase traffic congestion. So there are apps which are prepared, and if you are accessing a certain area, that app will tell you exactly where the parking is available, what is the cost of the parking, whether it is a on-street parking or it's a off-street parking. So it will give you all kind of details. So that kind of minimizes your time and effort that you spend in finding a parking spot. That also kind of gives you a heads up, because if you go to an area where parking is not available, you could choose to travel by public transport. So, kind of managing the supply of parking to achieve a modal shift in favor of public transport, that is also something which can be achieved. Um, Somehow my screen has frozen. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I need to resolve this issue. Just give me a minute.
Sure, ma'am. No issue.
Okay. So in transportation, like I said, this modal shift that we always talk about, that we have to encourage the use of public transport, reduce the reliance on private cars. That is also something that can be supported by technology. All of you must be aware of these present, ride-sharing apps that have come. Or there are these Olas and Ubers. So with that also, the need of people to own a car, that can be replaced by the need to own a ride. So that is something that technology can support with. Technology can also support with micro mobility, promoting micro mobility solutions like electric bikes and scooters. They are like effective replacements, alternatives to cars, because people who cannot, for instance, cycle or walk, can definitely use these e-bikes and scooters. And again, this will also be a form of shared mobility. So people will not perhaps feel the need of owning their own private vehicles. Another thing that technology can help in is fleet management. So transportation companies, uh, transport corporations, other fleet operators, they can actually monitor their vehicles in real time, and this can help them optimize their routes, reduce the fuel costs, and lower emissions. Technology can also be used to for ensuring sustainability in our development. So a wide range of IoT solutions can be implemented in cities to improve energy efficiency. All of you must have heard about EVs, which are coming in, a big way. So with the EVs, what is going to happen is we really have to plan our transition from fuel-based vehicles to EVs, uh, in a very planned manner. It can't be done in a hasty manner. This is something that I always recommend, that the gestation period of any kind of transition, the planning gestation period, should be extremely long, because if you rush into something, then there will be some things which will fire back. For instance, with EVs, we are talking about this transition to electric mobility, but because of this increase in electric vehicles, waste in form of batteries, which is actually extremely toxic waste, that is going to increase. So we have to develop an ecosystem for disposal of these batteries. Unless that is not done, then this transition to EV will not be sustainable. In fact, it will give rise to a much larger problem. Technology can also be used for environmental monitoring. So the World Health Organization has an estimate that 92% of the global population lives in areas with pollution levels above the recommended limits. And almost 3 million deaths each year are linked to outdoor air pollution. So this is an alarming number. So technology can be used to actually map environmental data such as temperature, humidity, air control, and hotspots in the city can be identified. And at these pollution hotspots, then remedial measures can be undertaken so that the levels of air pollution can be brought down. Like I said, technology for energy management, I've already spoken about the EV transition. For waste management also, technology will play a very pivotal role. Waste removal services, reducing the operational costs, and again, thereby improving sustainability. Water management, again, is one of the places where technology can play a very big role. We can track consumption patterns for both utilities and end users. We can track the non-revenue water losses that are taking place in our systems, and then we can reduce that very effectively. And now technology also has a role in improving the delivery of public services. For instance, in a city, Buenos Aires, a city in Argentina, the capital of Argentina rather, they had used this integrated GIS platform, which would enable a citizen to take picture of a certain location to identify a problem and send the information to ministry. A similar system was actually adopted in Delhi also by our minister, Mr. Kejriwal, and it faced a lot of success and it was very well appreciated. So what happens, it is an instant method of registering your complaint with your local agency or with the ministry or any authority. Similarly, Singapore also has developed this centralized mobile app wherein the public can access services to 11 government agencies and 16 town councils. So again, another very good way, like a one window thing where you can go and you can access the services, even fill your bills, for that matter, file complaints. So all the matters can be taken care of online. Now there is this use of word technology and green technology. What is the difference between the two? There's no as such difference between the two. If you adopt any technology, directly or indirectly, there will be some green benefits. And green technology is something which I would like to call as a standalone technology. So by technology, it comprises of ICT, IoT, GIS. I've already spoken about that. It's more digital in nature. It increases the efficiency of systems and operations, thereby reducing environmental footprint. Green technology, on the other hand, is more to do with the renewable energy sources, solar, wind, hydel, etc. Again, this is not like a hardcore definition, but it is generally understood as such. Green technology would have a direct impact on reducing environmental footprint. It also has long-term sustainability. While for use of technology, you need to build the capacity of a user. It's a tool. But with green technology, mostly these have very limited user interface. So these are standalone technologies. Technology, again, is data dependent. There has to be certain information which has to be fed into that system, that tool, for the outcome to be there. Whereas green technology, it can be monitored and evaluated, the benefits of it, but as such, it's not really data dependent. Technology, the advantage is that perhaps there will be no waste, or let's say minimal waste. Wherein with green technology, like I gave you the example of EVs, there needs to be a system that needs to be set up, to recycle the waste byproduct. In both the cases, the outcome is very favorable. It would improve the livability of the cities, and it would have a positive impact on the health and productivity of the people. Now, how is it that technologies can enable inclusivity in cities? First point is about the data, that because it will enable data driven decision making, so the probability of error gets reduced quite significantly. Secondly, it will enable equitable development both ways, so the users access to services increases, and the outreach of services provided by the agencies, that also increases. For instance, you can use GIS to map the bus routes of a city on the map of the city, and then you can come up with areas, you can identify areas where although the network is there, but perhaps the frequency is low, or perhaps with using the same tool you can identify areas where perhaps the affordability of the people, the affordability of the end user is low, and that will kind of help you to identify that this is the particular route where I need to rationalize my fares. So this is how it will ensure equitable development. It will also help in monitoring the quality of services and address grievances. So monitoring and evaluation is again something that technology can help with, thereby enabling inclusivity in cities. The challenge, of course, is that we have to give adequate gestation period for planning any technological intervention to ensure proper output and multiplicity of use. So all the technology that we talk about, it comes at a very high cost. So we have to ensure that if we procure a system or a technology, it should have multiple uses, so that is how it will be worth its money. So that is one point that I would like to make. Second is scaling up and replicability. Now in our smart cities right now, we are at the stage where we are having these pilot projects. In some of the cities which started before, we have been able to scale it up. But scaling up and replicability of a particular use of technology, that is very, very essential. Next, and the last and the most important, is capacity building of agencies, community, etc., to ensure sustained use of technology. Now, let me just give you an example here. I am in fact associated with this draft master plan of Delhi 2041. So in that, we, for the first time, the master plan has actually proposed that we are not going to increase the supply of parking. Rather, we will rationalize the parking supply. So there can be some areas which are really close to the public transit. So over there, the parking can be reduced, the parking norms. Whereas the areas where the services of the public transport are not good, there people would need their own personal vehicle to travel. So there, a slightly higher, ECS norm can be followed. So that tool that we have recommended is called the PTAL, Public Transport Accessibility Levels. Now for using this PTAL, this entire city of Delhi has to be mapped on the GIS, and the local bodies and the development authority, capacities of these agencies have to be built, because the local bodies are the ones who will be actually approving the building plan and checking whether as per the the permissible ECS people have provided parking or not, or also to check whether they've not exceeded their parking norm. So for the PTAL to be effectively used, the urban local bodies, the people who are working there, they actually have to be trained about how to use the tool. Otherwise, use of PTAL, rationalization of parking, will just remain as text in the master plan. So that is what I mean by this. Similarly, even with the community stakeholders. So, the digital penetration amongst our urban poor is very low. So to imagine that everyone will be able to to imagine that everybody has smartphones. Firstly, everyone is the owner of a smartphone. Secondly, then everyone knows how to use that particular app, or that facility which is available on the smartphone. That would be a very far-fetched assumption. So we have to build capacity building of both these people. Secondly, also the community, perhaps they do not have this thing of buying the phones. So maybe at these community centers or something, some kind of a technology, some kind of a common setup where they can take the advantages of the digital world without having to own a smartphone or something like that we'll have to think of. Again, the planner and me can't stay away from commenting that smart planning is required before we adopt smart technology. Procuring a technology is the easiest thing to do, but what is it that you're going to do with the technology? How is it that the technology is going to benefit the city? That is something that we have to think of. So the general understanding is that the city is smart if it can collect, analyze, and use mass quantities of data from variety of industries, from urban planning to garbage collection. And in a smart city, a complex network of interconnected sensors and devices and software are built, and it is assumed that this would allow the city to become more sustainable and efficient for its residents. However, the warning that I'm giving is that most cities are blindly adopting technology, whereas the focus should be on developing capacities to take informed decisions, planning, procurement, use across all these sectors. So what is it that I mean by smart planning? By smart planning, I mean that even without the use of technology, there are a lot of things that you can do to ensure that your cities become more livable, more inclusive communities are developed within your city. For instance, we can adopt sustainable planning strategies. Some of the aspects I have just listed down here. We could encourage cities to adopt compact mixed-use urban form. So what will happen is this will reduce the trip distances and make for more vibrant, active, and safe areas, and smaller ecological footprint. We could also focus without any technology on renewal of our ecologically sensitive assets, such as the urban greens, lakes, and rivers. So lakes and rivers in particularly have been ignored by are being ignored by our cities. They have become the backyards of our cities. When the cities evolved, our cities were all oriented towards the city, towards the rivers. There were ghats, there was a very vibrant public realm, there used to be markets, there used to be transportation by the rivers. So the rivers had a very important role to play. Now what has happened is most of the rivers are just, places where we are dumping our waste, untreated wastewater. So that is something that just by some planning, physical planning, we can again think about renewing our rivers. We can also improve our open space structure, and this would have a direct impact on the urban heat islands and pollution levels. Another place where we can intervene is we can improve our resource management. So we can focus on reusing our solid waste, judicious use of water, improving share of clean energy, reuse of wastewater through mandatory dual piping. Now, in all these measures, it is possible that we will have to support them by technology. But I'm saying that this should be the intent, and technology will be a very small part of it. Again, for smart planning, we can think about reducing pollution and emissions by focusing on non-motorized modes like walking and cycling. Particularly for the first and the last mile connectivity, if we, invest towards improving our walking and bicycling environment, then it will have a great impact. The usage of public transport, the access of public transport will improve immensely, and thereby also its usage. We can also undertake integrated planning and traffic management measures. Like simple things, once upon a time there used to be these traffic management plans that city used to make, wherein they used to just say that the movement of instead of just increasing the right of way of roads, certain roads were made one way. Okay, so once that entire system is established that these will be one way streets, and on odd days people will park here, on even days people will park here. So these are all non structural, I mean, these are not construction based interventions. This is just basic, if I can use the word common sense, to improve your traffic management. Another thing is reduce idle running of vehicles. How many of us stand at traffic junctions and put off our vehicles? Very few. But that would have a great impact on air pollution and heat. So for all these smart planning measures, we need a lot of awareness generation and behavioral change amongst ourselves as people. So as a concluding note, I would just say that let's not get blindsided by technology. Technology is excellent, but we have to adopt it with some sense and sensibility about what we are going to do after we adopt the technology. Do we have the capacities to use the technology? Does the cost benefit analysis of procuring the technology make sense? Technology at the end of the day is a tool, but it's not a solution. And under the garb of technology, we cannot not focus on adopting sustainable ways of living and behavioral change. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. If any of the participants have any question, you can ask those or you can write in the chat box. Anybody? Okay. So as no questions have been raised, I think everybody is they are thankful and they are satisfied. They are satisfied with the presentation. Thank you so much, ma'am, for accepting our invitation and sharing your thoughts with us with such presentation in this short span of time. Thank you so much. Now we have a special validatory lecture by Professor Shashwat Bandhopadhyay. He is a civil engineer with advanced qualifications in urban planning and infrastructure management. His ongoing doctoral research work focuses on climate change and urban vulnerability in India. He is presently a professor and area chair of infrastructure planning program at the University. He has over 22 years of experience in the urban development sector in South Asia with a focus on city development planning and designing on environmental structure. Since 2007, he has been spearheading urban capacity development activities in several Indian general cities in India, extending support in cities development planning and infrastructure prioritization. As a team leader, he has been involved preparation and appraisals of several city and comprehensive development plans across various regions of India. He has also led the rollout of national urban capacity development initiatives such as RTP and RCVH under the banner by Government of India. He is also involved in several Pan-Asia pilot initiatives such as ADB Green Cities Toolkit in Asia, CDIL utilization of CIIPP toolkits in India and Nepal, piloting of World Bank supported cultural heritage and tourism assets based city development strategies, and sustainable tourism assessment toolkit for India. Professor Shashwat has also worked extensively in the field of urban lakes and water resources management studies in South Asian contexts such as environmental management plans and strategies for East Kolkata wetlands. He has also been a member of the working group set up by Planning Commission of India for 12 5-year in 2012, as well as an expert committee member of National Development Council subgroup on urbanization. He is presently member of the expert committee set up by Delhi Development Authority for Green Delhi. He has worked in India, Bhutan, Bangladesh, China, Nepal, and in Pacific Island countries. I invite you to share your thoughts with us. Over to you, Professor Shashwat Bandhopadhyay.
Yeah, thank you, SAIARD. Thank you, Vishwajit for inviting, and good afternoon all friends and colleagues. I know you have very intense day of discussion and presentation about inclusive urbanism and green technology, and I thought sharing some of my thoughts of some of the challenges of urbanization and what are the difficulties in working with some of these challenges extensively, because I was directly involved in managing two preparation of environmental management plan for two urban wetlands. One in Bhopal, it's called Bhoj wetland, and then there is a second one in East Kolkata wetland. So I would like to bring to your attention some of the challenges that we face while when we are preparing something related to sustainability and sustainable urban development. And I think this aspect is often not deliberated or discussed in many of our mainstream planning and physical planning education or training programs. So I thought let me bring forth to you all of your attention and some of the challenges that we face. Why? Because in planning, the first thing which is comes to whenever we are discussing about planning, the first question that we always keep asking ourselves is that why we plan? What are the key benefits and what are the key objectives of planning? And whenever we look at it, and we always see that from the perspective of an urban planner, we tend to become very holistic. Okay, and so that we talk about water pollution, we talk about air pollution, we talk about solid waste management, we talk about energy, green building, sustainability, so on and so forth. But in reality, what happens is that an urban planner is trying to transgress the disciplines of many separate discipline. For example, if you are dealing with energy, for example, if you are dealing with environmental ecology, so this becomes a very much challenging when an urban planner or a spatial planner trying to intervene in a problem like East Kolkata wetland, and all of you know that East Kolkata wetland is more than close to about 20,000 hectares is a natural wetland which has been treating wastewater and also kind of preventing flood for the city. And it's truly now in the context of today what we call is sustainable solution or a nature-based solution. So truly it is a nature-based solution which has been for traditionally, and if some of you are more interested, you can also read through some of the writings of Dr. Dhruvajyoti Ghosh around the East Kolkata wetland. Now let me tell you the challenge of this managing this East Kolkata wetland. So when we come from academia, research, and we are also coming from urban planning professional, we take this attitude or we take this position with a lot of holistic values that we must save this, we must make a very interesting plan with the images coming from Europe or some of the best practices coming from elsewhere. But while making this plan, we forget that there is a very large land and real estate economy of the city, and they are much powerful than us. So if you go to Kolkata and you see that the East Kolkata wetland area, so surrounding to that entire ecosystem, which is this entire wastewater treatment ecosystem, you see that there is a kind of a land and real estate operator who are every day they're inching and slowly converting the wasteland into a real estate land. And as you know, in India, this is very common. After you have converted a lake land for urban development, you'll call that apartment as a lake view apartment. So you'll go across many part of the eastern Kolkata, you'll see there is a large amount of lake view or forest view apartments which are coming in. But this is in any city that we go, any city that we work, we see there is the largest city shaping organization are these real estate agents, real estate agencies who are working hand to hand with the political or the local administration to identify some land and doing that. So, and coming from the planning profession, we are hopelessly not trained how to deal with these aspects of political economy, how to deal with these aspects of the land and real estate, because we are coming from a perspective that we need to conserve this East Kolkata wetland with all our good intention, but actually we are meeting with a lot of other stakeholders. So that is the challenge when you say inclusive urbanism. Our cities are becoming more and more challenging, more and more complex, and more multiple stakeholder orientation. And this is where I think the role of planners and role of planning community is not, earlier days when we were saying we'll dictate a plan, I will make a master plan and everybody in the city is going to follow. Now the role of planning and role of planners are changing as a more of a collaborator or a co-creator. A planner is trying to assimilate, organize larger stakeholders, and mind you, in every city, a few days ago I was in Maharashtra, and that city in Pune, so there is a lot of discussion, and in the entire workshop everybody was blaming about the real estate developers are actually damaging the Pune city. But if you look at the advertisement of these real estate developers in a newspaper in Kolkata or a newspaper in Pune or Bangalore or Delhi, you'll see that what are they selling in the in the advertisement? What are they actually trying to do? All their apartment or whatever they're doing, they are actually highlighting is either a lake view apartment, hill view apartment, and forest view, or a green view apartment. No real estate product will sell you that this is a road view apartment or a market view apartment. So actually, in a true sense, the landscape is being capitalized and monetized by the real estate operator in a great way. And they have become, any city you go, they are the largest stakeholder. They are the largest city shaping organization. And we have to acknowledge them, and we have to learn how to work with them. And I must admit, after we made the management plan in Kolkata with all our, lot of scientific acumen and a lot of discussion, the plan failed miserably. And that real estate and other agencies, the way they continue to work, and what you call, there's a Chinese proverb called, the death by 1,000 cuts. So that every day 1 inch or 1 square meter of East Kolkata wetland gets converted into an urban land or a real estate aspect. The second case that I wanted to bring to your attention was the case of another very interesting, very visually very brilliant lake in Madhya Pradesh, the city of Bhopal. The lake was about, the main lake was 40 square kilometer. It's one of the very brilliant urban lake in India. It's a man-made lake, and it has a catchment of about 400 square kilometers, 360, 370 square kilometer. Now the challenge is this lake is one side is bounded by the city of Bhopal, and lake catchment where the water is coming to the lake, which is about 360 square kilometers, which is spread over on 2 districts and several hundred villages, close to about 98 villages. which is falling in the catchment area, and it happens to be a living catchment area. Now, if you want to maintain the lake, if you want to maintain the water quantity and quality in the lake, now you have to work in this 98 villages, catchment, you have to intervene, cutting across two district administration, and you know that, as you all know, that the regional planning or beyond urban area planning is very, very sketchy in India. So the same challenge happens, same challenges occur, that you know that whenever we are intervening in a large natural water bodies, large natural ecosystem, that the complexity is involved in planning is much more than what we actually intend. You know, we always come up with a lot of visualization that our cities should be sustainable, our cities should be inclusive, our cities should be this. But how to deal with those complexities? When you say, for example, when you say include them, now when you say include them, because what we are talking about, neighbors, local organization, local communities, we are talking about women and gender perspective, we are talking about children and young people, elders and seniors, low-income residents. We are talking about industries, real estate, markets, and so on and so forth. So this is what are the complex cities with the complex challenges. And the perspective is that how to deal with so many stakeholders while actually putting forth our argument for managing something, improving something, or conserving something. And as a result, as you see that the Delhi, in spite of being one of the foremost polluted cities, when you are preparing a master plan for Delhi, very little actions can be put forth actually to reduce the environmental pollution in Delhi. Similarly, some of our cities have very interesting water bodies and waterfronts and lake water, and we are unable to actually manage them through spatial planning interventions. And we see a lot of popularity with some of these mission-based programs. For example, when the funding is coming from national government, for example, the Amrut and other program, and a lot of people are very happy with dealing with some of these projects, but people are not really happy to deal with some of the planning intervention. So I think as a community, as a the urban planning community or spatial planning community, we have to now learn how we deal with these complex stakeholders, how to deal with these complex challenges, and we have to probably reskill ourselves. Because I know I don't know whether Vishwajit is here. Vishwajit is very happy. He likes to do a lot of GIS-based thing, and many colleagues in SAIARD are also, they love to do GIS. Most of the colleagues who come from geography. But GIS is a very simple tool. They are not human, so they don't talk, they don't protest. So whenever you have anything, there is a geo coordinate, we map them, we color them, and then we say we buffer them. We can play around them because this is a command and control software. But when these features, these geographical features in real life starts opposing, start talking, and there are a lot of real interest, and this real interest coming from whether it is an urban poor community, whether it is a politician interested in, whether it is a real estate body interested in, unless until we know, we understand how to deal with them, we are not going to make any headway in terms of, we'll keep talking about, I'll talk to Vishwajit and my colleagues in SAIARD, okay, let's do this. Or let's do something more inclusive, let's do something more green. But we have to understand that the challenge here is how do we ground those ideas from a workshop to a specific level and at the city's context. And that there, I think we need a more political thinking. We need more sustainable, approaches to finance some of these ideas and how to ground those ideas. So these are some of the challenges that I think we as an urban planning community, we as a spatial planning community need to deal with them. And and there is, of course, there are a lot of new initiatives. Like for example, way back when I was studying in Netherlands, we used to use the softwares like ISRI and some of the branded software of GIS. But today the global community has moved out of any branded GIS software to open source softwares. Today communities are now using GRASS. Today communities are using more and more open software, more ideas to collaborate, more ideas to co-create, rather than those watertight softwares. That is the same thing we need for our context of urban planning. We have to become more open source. We have from that very concrete bound idea about how to plan a neighborhood, how to plan a society, how to plan a city. We have to open up. We have to become those open source softwares. And today, some of you know who are using GRASS. You always know that people are using more GRASS than any GIS or ArcInfo and ArcGIS today. So this is the same with the planning. We have to throw our inhibitions and rigidness, and we need to be more flexible and see that that plan is working and planners are working. Otherwise, we make a lot of plans there in our in our back wall, or they remain in our almirahs, but we don't find opportunity to implement them. So we have to find opportunity where plan is working and planners are working. So I thought that as a concluding remark of this discussion, and I see a lot of very brilliant and interesting ideas have been deliberated over last 2 days. But I think the main challenge before us, we as a community, is that how do we localize and ground some of these ideas? And to do this, we have to open up. We have to learn certain skills, certain techniques to actually able to implement some of these ideas on ground. And this is the most opportune time for all of us. And also, not only are we alone, there are also, because there's a lot of technology which is shaping our world. Many transactions which was not possible, like some of you, maybe an architect or engineer in early days, we were using a different tool to do a map. Today, same map can be produced by a GIS or AutoCAD much faster. Same analysis can be done. So we are aided, our decisions are also getting aided by a lot of technologies, and this is what also changing. Like for example, city like Singapore, they have now completely, transformed the way they were doing urban planning. There's a complete automation in the urban planning perspective. The cities today are using Cityscope or digital twinning, some of them. But we have to be also cautious that these are technologies to aid our decision. The technology themselves is not going to take a decision. The final planning decision rests on us. And this is what I think we have to combine our effort and also the taking help of some of this technological advancement. And if you need to fulfill the SDG 11, saying that safe, inclusive, resilient city, we need to completely transform the way we are looking at our geographic space, the way we are mapping and planning our settlement neighborhoods around us. So with these few words, I would like to thank all of you for participating in this very interesting workshop, and also like to thank SAIARD for inviting me for this concluding remark. Thank you, and over to you.
Thank you so much, sir. If any of you have any question or you have anything to share, you can ask those, or maybe you can share those. Anybody? Okay. Thank you so much, sir. It is our privilege that you have accepted our invitation and shared your thoughts with us. Uh, so we have actually nearly come to the end of today's session. But before that, I'd like to invite Mrs. Munmun Shen, Faculty SAIARD, to propose a vote of thanks. Over to you, Munmun ma'am.
Thank you, Antara. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
Okay. Yes, thank you. So, participants, we reached at the end, and the end part of 2 days national level webinar on inclusive urbanism and green technology. I must say that the whole session turned out very informative for all of us, where we grabbed the opportunity to understand about the existing technology for the growing cities, inclusive green aspects, along with smart planning and role of technology. So on behalf of CUBE, part of SAIARD, I would like to take this opportunity to record my heartfelt thanks for Mr. Arindam Vishwas for sharing your findings, which put our attention into the critical variation between the planning and execution. I would like to thank Ms. S. Chakraborty for nice presentation over the topic of urbanization and technology, and shows how can technologies enable inclusivity in cities where smart planning is more important before smart technology. Along with this, I would like to express our sincere thanks to Professor S. Bandyopadhyay for sharing his thoughts with all of us, and also focus the address towards the problem which come as a part in the city planning. Also, I want to add that we have been fortunate to be supported by such a team, such a motivated team and dedicated colleagues from CUBE, SAIARD, in association with Smart Cities Mission, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, Government of India, who made this workshop successful. At the end, and last but not the least, I would like to pay my heartfelt thanks for all the participants for their presence and patience and encouraging us. And we hope to see all of you again into another knowledge packed session and another workshop also. So thanks to all of you, and very heartful thanks to all of you. And over to Antara.
Thank you, ma'am. With that, we have come to the end of this 2 days national level webinar on inclusive urbanism and green technology. My sincere thanks to each and everyone for joining with us. We have shared the feedback link in our chat box. Please fill it up and we will get the certificates. Hope to see you soon. Stay safe, everybody. Thank you.